So if you find this sleep story helpful or interesting, then give it a thumbs up, leave any comments that you've got below, and if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you can receive notifications of when future sleep stories go live. I have dozens and dozens of stories already on my channel that you can go and search. I also release new stories every single week, so I hope you enjoy this story. So as you listen to me and begin to comfortably drift asleep, I don't know if you're going to fall asleep faster to the sound of my voice or the spaces between my words. And as you drift asleep, I'm just going to tell this healing sleep meditation in the background. And you find yourself sitting in a meadow, and you're looking over the most beautiful landscape. You can see undulating hills, pockets of woodland, a wide and winding river, the sun glistening off the water of the river down there, fields with crops in, fields with sheep, with cows, a distant village with the church steeple standing tall among the trees. And you're sitting here in this meadow on this hillside with an easel in front of you, just painting a picture of that view. And as you paint that picture, so you're moving your gaze from aspects of the view to the canvas in front of you, selecting the colours, mixing the colours, applying the paint to that canvas, feeling the way the paintbrush moves on the canvas, and the way that paint feels to be applied. And you can notice the birds in the sky. And you can notice the way the clouds are just so gently moving across the sky. And the way the grass changes from darker to lighter in waves as the breeze blows across the hills. And noticing the way the shadows of the clouds move across the landscape. And as you gaze out at that landscape and continue that painting, almost becoming mesmerized by the process, you see someone just ambling along. And they're walking up the hillside, taking in the scenery. And eventually they arrive where you are. And they say that it'd be nice for you to take a break from your painting and to go for a little walk, and it might help to add more depth to the painting, to walk down and explore some of that landscape that you're painting. And so together you both walk down the hillside, walking through that meadow, finding your way down to the river. And at the river, the person who you're with says that they've got a little rowing boat here that you can use together to just row to the village. And so you both get into that rowboat. You push off from the side and gently row towards the village. And as you row towards the village, hearing the splashing and the pushing and the movement of the oars in the water. Smelling the fresh air of the water. Seeing fish swimming around in the water. And the surface of the water and how the movement of the surface of the water distorts the view through the water. And the way the light is reflecting on the surface of the water. Taking in the fine details that will help you to have a better understanding of the depth of the image you're painting, and to know which bits of the painting you'd like to enhance and focus on. And down here, as you row around the river, you can hear the sound of the rustling leaves of the trees as the wind blows a breeze. You can feel that cool breeze on your cheeks, and the movement of that boat, the way it glides in short bursts along the river with each row of the oars. Noticing the reeds at the side of the river gently swaying and rustling as the wake of the boat nudges them on the shore. And you follow this river all the way round to the village, and you pull that boat in by a small jetty, tie the boat to that jetty, climb out onto the shore, and you walk up onto the shore, and the two of you start the walk across a little green area to a footpath, and as you walk towards the footpath, so you notice the sharp shadows of the midday sun and the high contrast, and the way that everything looks so overexposed that's caught in the sunlight. And you look back the way you came. You can see your easel up there, and that chair up there, where you were sitting, almost like the tiniest dot on the landscape. And the tree line behind where you were sitting. And you follow that footpath into this village, and are surprised at how quiet this village is, with the most beautifully manicured gardens and houses, everything looking so well looked after, and a couple of tiny shops and a pub, and an inviting pub garden. And you sit in the pub garden while your companion on this journey goes and gets you some drinks, and you enjoy a relaxing couple of hours in the pub garden, just relaxing in the sun with good conversation. A slight murmur from the couple of other people in the garden. Just noticing the way the bees and butterflies and other insects interact with the plants in the garden. Hearing the sound of a robin in a nearby tree, and other birds singing in trees, and a robin jumping down on the ground near you, hopping its way along towards you, moving its head around, looking as it moves closer. And you watch as that hops almost to your foot, and then continues and hops away in different directions, and seems to be hopping around with purpose, before launching back up onto a fence and then up into a tree. And then a pub lunch arrives, gets placed in front of you, the sound of the cutlery being placed on the table, the sound of the plates being placed on the table, that heavy sound of crockery on solid wood. As you both continue your conversation, eating your food, the sound of cutting the food, the knife tapping the crockery, the fork gently tapping the crockery, and how those sounds sound differently while you're eating. And you can smell that food, smell the pleasant smell of your meal, the pleasant smell of your companion's meal. And you both find that the conversation dies off a little while you're both so focused on consuming the food. And after you've eaten and had another drink to quench your thirst, you both leave the pub and continue your journey into the village. You head to the church. You notice that it's just such a small and beautiful church, with a beautifully kept graveyard around the church. And you follow the path up to the church door, and there's a large metal latch to open the door. And so you open that door with the most beautiful sound, and slide that door open, feeling the weight and the solidity of that heavy wooden door in the arched door frame. And you walk into that church instantly, feeling a sense of the atmosphere, feeling a change in the temperature, the way the light changes, the way the sun shines through the stained glass windows, illuminating the ground with multiple colours, the pictures on those stained glass windows, depicting different religious scenes. And you close the door behind you, hearing that echo of the heavy door closing as it reverberates around the inside of the church. The smell of the old church, almost like the smell of old books and old wood. And each footstep you take rings and echoes through the church, almost as if the church was unintentionally designed to make sounds sound good, and to make sounds have a certain hypnotic quality to them. And you walk over to the pipe organ, you turn that pipe organ on. You sit on that old seat that looks like it sat there for hundreds of years. And you push your feet onto the pedals, making deep, booming sounds that reverberate around the church. And then you gently play some relaxing music, something sounding a bit classical on the keyboard. Hearing the way those long extended notes and chords seem to pass around the inside of the church, seem to be enhanced by the pipes, by the echo around the church, and seem to almost pass inside you, as if somehow the frequency of these notes is reverberating and vibrating through your body, almost absorbing you in the experience, almost as if you're part of the organ. And you find that your eyes gently close while you play, as if that sound reverberating through your body is deepening you and comforting you and centering you on being in the present, on being in the moment. And after you've played for a while, you turn the organ off, you go and stand at the head of the church, looking down into the church, admiring the beauty of the architecture, the hard work that went into building this structure. And then you hear the church bells ringing, which you know now are automated to ring every hour. Those church bells ring above you, high up in the steeple. And you hear the pattern of that ringing. And while those bells are still ringing, so you leave the church, walk through the graveyard back out to the street. And you follow that street along until you see another old building. You notice the date on the front of that old building as being built in the 1700s, and you walk into the small doorway and notice how low the ceilings are in this room. And you're inside the village library, and the sounds in here seem so muted, which is even more evident given you've just been in the church. And everyone's talking with a whisper, and each footstep sounds like a dull thud. And you've got the smell of old books. And then in other areas in the library you notice the smell of newer books. And then you find some really old bookcases with glass doors. And you open the doors and smell the very old books in those bookcases. And you notice how differently they're bound to the more modern books. How the paper in these books feels different, the writing is different. And you look through a couple of those old books, through books about the history of the area, through books telling you who lived here, different roles people have played over the years. And then you put those books back, and you feel that this is all contributing to how you'll portray and add in something extra to your painting, so that the painting is more than just the sum of its parts. So that the painting is enhanced to tell the story of what's in the painting, to communicate more than just painting a realistic looking replica of the scene. And as you continue through the village, so this road arcs around, joining back to where the river is. And then it heads down with one part of the road going over a bridge, over the river, another part becoming a track that follows the edge of the river. And down that track you see some people being taught how to make clay pots, and they're on the riverbank with potter's wheels, being instructed how to shape that clay with their hands. And you get asked if you want to have a go, and so you sit down, you wet your hands in some warm water, you start pumping the wheel with your foot. You place a lump of clay in front of you. You splash a bit of water around the clay, but not too much. And you start to shape that clay with your hands either side, gradually shaping that clay, evening it out, and then moving your thumbs over the top of the clay, and almost just using the weight of your thumbs, letting those thumbs push down into the clay. And as the clay is spinning, so that begins to hollow out the inside and build up the outside. And you find this almost hypnotic, absorbed watching that spinning wheel, watching the spinning, developing clay pot, getting a bit more water on your hands, onto the clay, not too much, but just enough to allow your hands to glide around the clay. And then taking a small knife-like item and keeping it spinning, just cutting little areas where it ends up scraping off bits of clay and cutting into bits of clay, adding a bit of detail that's symmetrical around the pot. And then after a while, you let the wheel come to a stop. You gaze at your clay pot you've made. You remove it from the wheel, and they say that they'll turn that pot into something you can take away with you, but it'll take a while, so perhaps you'd like to go away and come back in a bit. And you're aware that it's now getting well into the afternoon, and you'd like to get back to finish your painting before it starts to go dark. So you're told it won't take too long, just a couple of hours. So you go away and continue exploring down this road. And as you explore, so you come off the path, continue following the river for a bit, and you and your companion head slightly into the woods. And then you notice what looks like a small hole in the ground near a tree. And there are some signs near that hole saying to be careful, that there's a hole there. And you walk over to the hole and look into the hole and shine a torch into the hole. And you see that it's a cave. And so the companion and yourself discuss going and exploring that cave just for a little bit. And so you lower down into the hole. You have to crouch slightly as you walk through this cave, shining your torch around. And you explore inside this cave. And then it opens up into a slightly larger chamber. And in this chamber, you notice paintings on the walls. You notice what looks like someone has printed an image of their hands on the walls, as if they've put their hands on the wall and sprayed paint out their mouth over the back of the hand to leave a handprint on the wall, and paintings of different wild animals, animals that you definitely know don't exist nowadays. And then after admiring that there were people here living here thousands of years ago who obviously did this work, you think to yourself about how they were painting thousands of years ago, trying to capture the essence of this area and their place within this area. And now you plan to do that as well, but on canvas. And after a while exploring, the two of you leave the cave. You head back along the riverbank. You pick up the bowl you've made, and you say that you'll glaze it yourself later and add in decoration, and then perhaps work on it further. And the two of you head back to the boat. You row back to where you started. You head up to the painting. You say goodbye to the person that was your companion for your journey out. They head off back where they came. And you know now how you want to paint this scene, what bits you want to emphasize and how. And now the sun is gradually beginning to set, fast approaching the time of day with the most beautiful lighting. And you've been painting, leaving the lighting till last, so that you can see what everything looks like just as the lighting reaches its optimal point. And you know that you want to emphasize elements of that village, to emphasize what makes this landscape so unique and such a wonderful place, and makes it so that it's not an exact replication of what you can see, because for that you could just take a photo. But it's your interpretation, your feelings of what it's like to be here. of how friendly people are, how in the moment everything seems to be. And so, just as the sun reaches the right point in the sky, and the light becomes perfect, so you capture some of that. And you paint what it feels like to be here. You paint the atmosphere into that painting. You create a work of art that stimulates a sense of wonder, of awe, that stimulates that sense of curiosity that draws people in to discovering little bits in that artwork, to making people want to look closely and to notice something different in it every time they look at it. And once you know you're happy with that painting, you pack your things up, you travel home, and thinking about the relaxing, pleasant day you've had out in that village, you go to bed and drift and float comfortably asleep, sleeping well all night, knowing you're going to wake refreshed, relaxed, and revitalized.